Okay, let's take a look at how we can use a motion path to create the same animation that we made by manually keyframing each stage of this ball bounce. So the first thing we can do is lower the opacity of our reference image. We can come down here to the data properties and go to opacity and just drag that down. And now we can see more clearly objects that we put on top of it. I'm going to turn off selection mode. If you don't have this toggle, go up to restriction toggles and turn on selection. And then you can uncheck selection. Okay, let's go to Shift A. We're going to add a curve, Bezier, and we're going to rotate that in the y-axis 90 degrees. We're going to press G to move and position the top right at the beginning of the curve, and press Tab to go into edit mode. Grab the bottom control point of the curve and press G to move. We're going to put that right at the bottom of the first bounce. And let's rotate this control handle up to try to recreate that curve. Okay, let's grab the end control point again, press E to extrude, and we're going to place that at the bottom. Actually, what we can do is E to extrude, middle mouse click to constrain, and now it's going to be perfectly aligned. And then we'll do that 2 more times. Okay, press V on the keyboard, and that will bring up the toggle free align. Now we can move these handles independently so we can sort of break the continuity of this line. So we'll have to press V here to toggle that. Okay, let's try to match this up. I don't know that this motion path is particularly accurate, but we're going to see how well this animation turns out by trying to follow it here. Okay, so that's a pretty close approximation. I think we could probably... I don't know that this line is accurate because it's a bit too steep on the left, so we're going to maybe just deviate a bit from the template here. Okay, so this is what we have. If we want an object to follow this curve, it's pretty easy. We can go ahead and add our object. Okay, in dimensions, let's just type 9. Bring that down to size, press Control A, apply the scale, press G to move. And what we want to do is go to the Constraints tab and open up Constraints, go to Tracking, Clamp 2, select that curve. Let's go to frame 1, and in the Y we can just push that over until it hits that very edge of that curve. And we are going to press right click on the mouse and then insert a single keyframe. So we're just going to do Y. I'm going to go to frame 31, which is the last frame here. Go ahead and insert a single keyframe. And now let's go to frame 25. Remember, the numbers here correspond to frames. So on frame 25, now we can move this object into position. Okay, with that keyframe set, let's go to the next frame, which is 17. Bring that down into position. And let's go to frame 7. Bring that over. And keyframe that. We're also going to want to keyframe the top apex of each curve. So let's go to frame 12 and move this over to the right position. And so frame 21, I'm going to move that into position. All right, it's pretty close. There's a little bit of weirdness in some of the curves, so let's see if we can fix that by adjusting the graph editor curves. Okay, so in frame 6, it's a bit out of position. Let's see what we can do here. Let's select everything, press V on the keyboard, and then just select free, and that changes all the handle types to have free handles. So now we can grab this and just kind of move that in this position here. So typically it should match pretty closely to what is here, but a kind of hand-drawn or kind of animated, hand keyframed example such as this might not match up with what these curves are giving us. So I actually generated this example image from an animated ball bounce that had a shader applied to it. I composited it into Photoshop, so it's not necessarily going to be a mathematically perfect template. Trying to recreate it here. We can get it pretty close, so let's just see how this looks. I think we can improve it. Okay, so frame 23 would be really somewhere around there, so maybe we can do something like that. Frame 20, frame 19. So that's pretty accurate there. Frame 16 is a bit off. So this is frame 28. I may not have keyframed 28. So actually let's do that now. Let's insert a keyframe. And actually I did that wrong. So let's undo that. I need to go to 28, move it into position, and now I can keyframe that. Okay. Okay, that's a lot more natural feeling. So when we play this back, yeah, I think that's gonna work for us. Okay, so that was pretty quick. A little bit easier to control where the object goes in space when you have a motion path like this for it to follow. I do want to show another way. It's not really versatile in that you can apply it to other types of animations, but we can recreate the ball bounce animation very quickly here in Blender. It is cheating, but that's okay. I want to show it anyway. So let's go ahead and hide this ball here. So let me just press H to hide that. I'll do Shift A. I'm going to create another UV sphere. 9 inches. We're going to do Control A to apply the scale. And okay, let's keyframe the position here on frame 1 in the Z axis. Okay, and at the end of the animation on frame 31, this is going to be on the ground, so we're going to keyframe it there. Actually, we can just type 0 in and insert a single keyframe. So we're starting out with something like that. What we can do is, in the graph editor, right-click, go to interpolation mode, and choose bounce. And someone has nicely gone in and drawn bounce curves for us. It'll apply to any keyframe set. So if you have 2 keyframes, you can apply this interpolation mode between those keyframes. So now we have a ball bounce with just 2 keyframes. Obviously the ball is supposed to end up over here, so what I can do is now keyframe this position in the Y axis. Let's go to frame 31. Let's move that over and insert a keyframe. All right, so it's a little bit strange in the speed that it's moving, but it's kind of going where it needs to go. Let's think about adjusting this Y location. The handles to have a different easing applied. So if I was to bring this up, right now we can, it's kind of throwing it. Maybe we can bring that down a little bit. Something like that. So it's not going to become the exact same animation because we're dealing with existing animation curves. Let's go ahead and normalize that so you can kind of see these curves here. Visual representation here in the graph editor is actually pretty close to what the path is that it takes. Actually, it's exactly like the path that it takes in the kind of side view that we're looking at. But that's how you can recreate a ball bounce with 2 keyframes and just about 2 minutes worth of work. Okay, so here are all 3 methods for animating a bouncing ball in Blender. The first one, of course, using keyframing for each frame of the animation and applying squash and stretch to give it character and energy. And the second example is using a motion path to constrain its motion. And the third one was using a generated curve in the graph editor.